Hello everybody, my name's Alan McKee. I'm the Associate Dean for Research in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at the University of Technology in Sydney, and I'm meant to be there right now speaking about enthusiastic and entertaining conversations about sex. I wish I could be there for such an important and exciting event, but unfortunately I had the worst flu I've ever had and it wasn't safe for me to fly. So here I am, stuck in Australia, and Rebecca has asked me instead to do a short introduction to the ideas that I was hoping to talk about, which hopefully might offer a starting point for some conversation and something useful for the event. So what I was going to talk about was some research we did that found out that young people, certainly in Australia, and one of the questions I was interested in was to ask whether it's also true in Canada, that young people in Australia, despite what we hear about sexualization and our sexualized culture, young people in Australia are still not confident talking about sex, specifically asking for what they want sexually, whether that's not to have sex or to have particular kinds of sex or to have safe sex or to have conversations about sex, but they're just not confident and comfortable having those kind of conversations. And then, having made that discovery, we were then looking at ways in which we might be able to encourage what we would call sexual agency, sexual assertiveness, and sexual communication. So just looking quickly at my notes, the starting point for this whole project was many years ago when I worked with a team who developed a list of 15 domains of healthy sexual development. So what would actually be involved in being a happy, healthy sexual being, and these included sexual agency, the ability to have control over your sexual decision making, to know what you want and to have the capacity to ask for that. And related to that, sexual assertiveness, the ability to state clearly what it is that you want without any sense that that is in any way inappropriate. As I mentioned at the start, we might think that young people in this sexualized world would be much more confident and happy talking about sex than has previously been the case. But what we found from our focus groups was that they're still not as comfortable talking about sex as we might think, and certainly as we would hope. So the way that we went about researching this, sorry, this is Oliver the parrot, the way that we went about researching this was to run a series of focus groups with young people where we went through a variety of aspects of healthy sexual development and asked them, what do you know about this topic and how do you know it? So one of the topics that we asked about was asking for what you want in a relationship. And what we found from the responses, which Rebecca might be able to show you, is that young people, when we ask them how you ask for what you want in a relationship, any intimate aspect of a relationship, one thing they were absolutely unanimous on across the focus groups was you can't just ask for it explicitly. If you want something, you can't ask for it because somehow that's a bad thing. And the way in which they told us that they were being taught, that they were learning that you should ask for what you want sexually, is hints, tips, and body language. All they're being trained in Australia, and again I'd be very interested to know how this matches up with the Canadian context, all they're being trained to say by their parents in schools in Australia is just say no. Not to actually know what they want or how to ask for it. It's being done in a kind of all or nothing way. Either you say no, or then you're on your own, you slut. A lot more detail on that, but I won't go into all of that right now. But one of the things that we were exploring then was how do you help young people to think about what they might want. And one particular tool that I've become very interested in is the use of yes, no, maybe lists, which were originally developed within the BDSM community. bondage and domination, masochist community. And just in passing, I'll say that I've been very interested in looking at kinky and BDSM communities as interesting sources of resources for ways in which we might communicate about sex. Non-normative sexual communities, it appears, because they don't assume that you can take for granted that everybody else thinks the same way as you do, have to learn how to talk about it, and for that reason they've developed a number of tools which might be useful. Safe words is another one. I'm very interested in looking at what we might do with those in sex education. But particularly yes, no, maybe lists. So a list of sexual practices that partners sit down and go through together, importantly in a non-sexual context, or before physical sexual contact begins, in a way which allows you to have conversations about sex that are hopefully in themselves fun and sexy, rather than being seen as somehow the opposite, which is what we're seeing in the focus groups of young people, that talking about what you want sexually is seen as somehow unsexy, to try and make those conversations about sex in themselves sexy and fun. So we ran a pilot project with young people at the Queensland University of Technology, where I was working at that point, gave them copies of the yes, no, maybe list, sent them off for 3 months. Now that particular project was also about looking at safe sex, and so one of the things we did with the list we used for those young people was we included unprotected sex or barebacking as one of the sexual practices in amongst every other sexual practice that they would score yes, no, or maybe. So that was a particular attempt to make safe sex conversations sexy and fun. What I'm talking about here is broadening that out to more generally having conversations about what you want sexually and making them sexy and fun. And the feedback that we got from the young people, and again Rebecca can show you the slides for this hopefully, was suggestive, nothing more than that. Less emotional was one of the comments that we got back from one of the young people. No judgment, which is kind of exactly what we were going for. Super fun, and that's really important. As I say, the idea was to try and make having these conversations about what you want sexually into something that in themselves are sexy and fun, rather than the opposite of that. And it opens the doors. So that was the kind of feedback that we got, which was exactly what we were hoping for. The next steps now are, this is a paper version. Who uses a paper version of anything anymore? So we need to develop the app, obviously. More than this, I really want to find a non-academic, non-health promotion, non-medical partner to distribute the app. I want a QR code on the side of a box of condoms so that you scan it and get the app. Because as soon as it becomes something that a university or a family planning organisation puts out, it becomes a different kind of product. It becomes something that's worthy and healthy, which are great things and I fully support. That's not quite what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make something more fun. So that's one thing I'm keen on, is to find a commercial partner with whom we can distribute it. There's also a theoretical question that we need to overcome, which is, of course, the young people who volunteered to take part in the pilot project were the kind of young people who were already, to a certain extent, comfortable talking about sex, and that was why they volunteered. So is there a risk that we're only ever going to be preaching to the converted? That's certainly something to think about, although that's kind of precisely why I want to find an entertainment partner who can help out with this. Because by making it a mainstream entertainment project, it makes it something that is less likely to be seen as a product that is only for people who are already sexually advanced in communication, that it'll make it more mainstream, more everyday kind of thing you can pick up at the corner store, and there it is. As I say, I'd love to see the QR box, scan that and you've got it on your phone. So that's what I was going to talk about. If I could have been able to join you, once again I'm really sorry that I can't be there, but it was about trying to identifying this problem, that the fact that certainly in Australia that young people are not being encouraged to talk about sex counterintuitively, and then to think about how we might address that through using the tools of entertainment, through a resource developed within the BDSM community. That's what I was going to talk about. I would have loved to have been there and taken questions about it. Rebecca suggests that there might be some way to gather questions. I'd be very interested to hear your comments and feedback on the project. And I hope that the conference is going really well, and that the rest of it is fantastic, that everyone learns a lot, that you build networks, and that at the end of the day we have a better understanding of and we make a strong contribution to positive cultures of sexual consent. Thank you very much.